Euro 2012 will kick off in 6 weeks' time. But should the Ukraine be co-hosting the event? The first match of Euro 2012 between Poland and Greece will kick off on the 8th of June in this stadium. The pitch is getting plenty of tender loving care and the dressing rooms are ready. There's a new whiteboard for the coach and special wash basins for cleaning the team's football boots. No expense has been spared. This year, the Ukraine is set to co-host the European Championships with Poland. Many of the championship matches are to be held in Kharkov, Ukraine's second biggest city. Lenin shows the way, but someone else is boss here now. Billionaire Alexander Yaroslavsky, also known as the King of Kharkov. Yaroslavsky owns the airport, the 5-star hotel, the football club, and the stadium where the teams will play. But we get a guided tour by his spokesman, Sergei.
So this is where the team walks when the game starts?
Yes.
So how big is the stadium?
Yeah, it's a very big stadium, but not big in the stadium of Ukraine.
For the Dutch team, the grass is to be short.
Yes, I know.
Sergei also takes us up to his boss's skybox.
You see, this is VIP area, this is President's skybox, only President.
This is all for the President?
Yes, this is President's skybox from Alexander Yaroslavsky, Michel Platini, Mr. Yanukovych and other guests.
This skybox is only open to the biggest dignitaries, like UEFA boss Michel Platini, and the most powerful man of all. I, Viktor Yanukovych, chosen by the Ukrainian people as President of Ukraine. The Ukrainian president will be attending several of the matches, and this president is a controversial figure. The president's biggest political opponent is held in this prison, after being convicted in a show trial. The prison is located in Kharkov, just a 10-minute ride from the stadium. Europe's biggest political prisoner is behind these walls. Opposition leader Yulia Tymoshenko.
We are supporting Yulia Tymoshenko, our leader of Ukrainian nation. She not guilty. She innocent. She is innocent.
If she is innocent, then why is she in prison?
Because she is a real opponent of our power. Because she real leader of national. We consider that our power is the criminal.
When is the last time you saw her?
Yesterday.
How was she?
Mostly of her day lying in the bed, having no possibility to stand up without any help. So the neighbor lady in the cell who sits with her just helps her to travel inside the room. Today also she had the walking aids and she had the possibility to walk with the walking aids.
Her lawyer says Tymoshenko suffers from back pain and does not receive the required medical help.
The state don't want to treat Mrs. Tymoshenko.
Why not?
Because she's a personal enemy, political enemy of the President Yanukovych.
The trial against Tymoshenko started in June last year. It was a rowdy spectacle.
We have no time for preparing. They gave me 9 days for revising of 24 volumes of the case, 300 pages each. So that's nothing.
The trial is about a deal that Tymoshenko made with Russia in 2009. At the time, she was Prime Minister of Ukraine, and she imported large amounts of Russian gas. Tymoshenko is not accused of having kept the money for herself. But the price Tymoshenko agreed on is far too high, according to the public prosecutor.
She was convicted for a political decision. So the same now is being done by Prime Minister Azarov, who is negotiating with Russia for gas issues. That's a normal political work for the Prime Minister, to negotiate. She never abused the powers.
According to Amnesty International, Tymoshenko should never have been indicted.
She made some decisions as a politician, because not because she killed somebody or she did something, committed some other crimes, and so that's why we think that she should be punished, but by voters, not by judges, and she shouldn't be in a prison. She should be released immediately, and we are calling on her release.
The trial against Tymoshenko is politically motivated, aiming to silence the opposition. Or so says Nico Langer, head of a German think tank in Kiev. Nico has lived in the Ukraine for years and knows Tymoshenko personally.
When we made that photo, I had to wait for her because she was at the general prosecutor's office. This was at the time when she was summoned like every day to the general prosecutor to give some statements or to familiarize with the files of the case. The goal is to remove the main opponent from the political opposition, to preserve power, and to send a signal, I think, to everybody who wants to really compete and stand up against Yanukovych.
Голова Конституційного суду України вручає президентові України Віктору Федоровичу Януковичу знак президента України.
Judges are appointed in Ukraine. And the mechanism of appointing judges is a very interesting one because it's done by the High Council of Justice. The High Council of Justice is appointed by the President. Judges are not independent. This special judge in the Tymoshenko trial is a very interesting because he has been appointed just before this trial. He was a judge who was still on probation, so on his trial period. So it's like having an intern trialing the former prime minister in the most important case the country has ever seen.
In October 2011, Yulia Tymoshenko was sentenced to 7 years in jail. The former Ukrainian prime minister disappeared in a police van. The conviction was strongly condemned by the EU and the US. Other members of the opposition were also arrested for corruption. In recent weeks, Tymoshenko has gone on a hunger strike in protest over her treatment. While her condition deteriorates, new charges are being prepared, including even incitement to murder.
In Ukraine's nowadays situation, the prosecutor could take the absolutely clear piece of paper and wrote that she killed President Kennedy and present it to the court, and she will be convicted for that. And there will be 2 or 3 persons who will say, we are the witnesses, we saw that.
L'organisation de l'euro, de l'UEFA Euro 2012 est attribuée à Pologne-Ukraine.
UEFA boss Michel Platini announced his choice in 2007. 5 years later, he refuses to speak out publicly about Yulia Tymoshenko and the other opposition members who have been convicted. The UEFA is a football association, says Platini, not a political organisation.
If UEFA has values such as fairness, for example, and sticking to the rules of the game, then they should speak up if in a country there is no fairness and the rules of the game are not followed.
But Mr. Platini says we're about football, not about politics.
Yes, but as I said, even in football, there are some basic values. Without those basic values, it's not possible to play the game.
We're in the Kiev underground, on our way to the Ukrainian parliament. We are meeting this man, Roman Zabzaliuk. Zabzaliuk is a member of parliament for Tymoshenko's party. His speciality, corrupt politicians. I know there is corruption in the world, in Europe too, among politicians, but not to such an extent that it cripples everything. His own party also contains some rotten apples. Several colleagues have defected to the president's party. The party leaders asked Zabzaliuk to investigate. My task was to investigate political corruption and the nature of the traitors, the people who defected to another party, and also tried to tarnish our leader, Yulia Tymoshenko. Zabzaliuk goes undercover. He pretends to defect, and the government falls for it. It leads to secret talks in back rooms. Zabzaliuk is promised a large sum of money if he defects. Zabzaliuk says he secretly recorded the conversations.
Если скажешь, что забрал шум, не голосуют, перешел, куда выслали? А если наши получают деньги все, тогда нужно им верить. Так пойми, поэтому я то же самое тебе тоже с ними сказал. Ты извини, давай, ты получаешь вот так и поехали. По февралю если обязательства выполним, потому что мы даже не переживаем.
Zabzaliuk could have made a lot of money if he defected to the ruling party. An advance of $450,000, and after that, a monthly payment of $25,000 for participating in the work of that group. And at the end of the legislative session, a premium of $500,000. In return for Yanukovych's money, I had to do what they are also doing. Think of different stories, lies in effect, and contra-propaganda against Yulia Tymoshenko. Zabzaliuk has to persuade other opposition members to also defect.
Да. Начало разговора 500 тысяч без этого. Да. Скажи, что остальное. Да.
The sums of money involved are enormous, says Zabzaliuk. But where does all that money come from?
The money is, to a large extent, extracted from the Ukrainian state budget. There are a lot of schemes how to extract money from the budget. The money is extracted from the energy business, from intermediary positions in gas trading, for example.
Support for the government is bought with big money. Does President Yanukovych know about these bribery practices? He has been silent, but the recordings, if genuine, are clear.
Мы сегодня, и президент лично меня на встрече попросил, говорит, дай мне больше, максимально, понятно. Когда я, допустим, дал Януковича по Львову, не проверили, он понял. То есть я работаю для того, чтобы шла политика, и мы работаем на президента, мне должны остальное не он.
Янукович в курсе ли о том, что случается? Что есть такие взятки?
Personally, as a member of parliament, I believe Yanukovych not only knows, but also directly makes it possible. One of the ways to destroy a democracy is to expand corruption and bribery, to create the myth in parliament and society that everything can be bought.
Under Yanukovych, the parliament has been rendered completely without political influence. The parliament now is a rubber stamp institution that does what the president wants.
Zabzaliuk published his recordings earlier this year. The government maintains that they are fake. What happened next? Nothing. If such a scandal occurred in any other European country, the government and president would resign. Here, everyone is silent.
There are many scandals where people just react, I don't know, they shrug and say, okay, one more of them. I mean, in Ukraine you had a Minister of Justice where you found out that his alleged Harvard diploma was not real. He never has been to Harvard at all. But he continued to be minister.
In Donetsk and Kiev, during football matches, supporters show their contempt and dissatisfaction with his regime in chants. Thank you, residents of Donbas, for, basically, such a bad president.
This you see building. This building in Euro provide media facilities. This blue boxes is central of live broadcasting in Euro.
The championship matches will be viewed live worldwide. And if you go to Kharkov, you can watch the repeat in your hotel room. But there's one thing you won't be able to see. This is the editorial office of ATN. The reports these journalists make can only be seen online. ATN used to be a TV station, but was taken off the air last year, following an unusual complaint, says General Editor Oleg Yukt. The Public Health Service of this country banned us from putting out a signal from our editorial office to the TV tower where the broadcasting equipment is located. That broadcasts our signal into the ether. Nika Kharkovchenko, leader of the youth branch of the ruling party in our region, has complained that, because we broadcast our signal through radio relay channels, she has a headache. That's why we can't broadcast that signal. Banned from TV, ATN decided to move to the internet. Initially, they were again thwarted. We'd signed contracts with providers who would supply our internet services. We anticipated problems and asked them, "Can you put our signal through?" Yes, they said. We signed a contract, then the provider called to cancel. He was pressured by the authorities. In this case, the authorities are in the city hall. The mayor of Kharkov is involved, Gennady Kerns. He's a member of the same party as President Yanukovych, and in 2010, he won the mayoral election in Kharkov. But critics say he did so in the Ukrainian way, with fraud.
So the wrong guy is mayor right now?
Well, it's not the guy who won the elections. It's somebody who stole the elections, and this is well documented and it's public. There's no doubt about that.
According to our data, and that of all exit polls, the current mayor would lose the elections. According to exit polls, he was 5 to 7 points behind his biggest rival. After the votes had been counted, he had supposedly won. That's why they didn't like what we did, that we reported everything. So the mayor of Kharkov allegedly came to power through fraud, and the TV station that reported it was taken off the air as punishment. The man who lost the mayoral election is Arsen Avakov. He's a member of Tymoshenko's party. Last month, he too was arrested on suspicion of fraud. And that could have big consequences for the editors of ATN. Avakov is one of the founders of our TV station. The exit polls said that he had won the elections, not Kearns. But Kearns was appointed. That's the whole conflict. And they're members of different parties. Avakov is a member of the Batkivshchina party, which is the target of a government witch hunt. And companies in which he has even a small share all suffer from the same witch hunt. Yanukovych's government is seated in this building in Kiev. Politics, journalism, and business. In Ukraine, they are closely intertwined. Most TV stations in this country are owned by several billionaires, rich businessmen who are dependent on the president. And the president uses that to his advantage, according to Nico Langer.
The processes used are very simple. The administration of the president says to them, you will get problems in your steel business, in your car factory, in your chocolate factory, if you report badly about the president or about the government. So it's very easy to put pressure on those media owners. Interestingly, the only channel who is reporting freely at this time is TVI. And TVI is a channel owned by a person who is living in London and who has no other business interests in Ukraine. So it's very difficult to put pressure on him.
Without the support of some rich person, mass media just can't exist. They can't get licenses, subsidy, nothing. They have no chance to work because the tax authorities keep checking on them, etc., until they're closed. Nowadays, independent mass media can only exist if their owners are foreigners. When we film a demonstration against the gay parade in Kiev, we meet a colleague from Ukrainian TV. He works for a TV station that is owned by a billionaire. First, we explain what the gay parade is. Then we ask our colleague if he can do his work freely as a journalist. We are completely free. What they say about the lack of freedom in the Ukrainian press, I don't know. In the 3 years that I've worked at this TV station, nobody has ever come up to me and said, you can't do this. If the president or prime minister does something bad, I can report it. It has never happened that we've been silenced.
Should I believe him?
No.
No?
No.
Nico Langer knows several journalists personally. He says they are pressured regularly.
Like calling people and telling them that they could lose their job, or calling their wife who is working in state employment, telling her that she could lose the job if the husband would not stop this or that kind of reporting. But as I said, this is almost not necessary anymore because journalists, they are now used in television to their boundaries, and they do not want to, I think most of them do not want to create problems for themselves.
For 90% of Ukrainians, TV is the most important source of information. And because President Yanukovych has the remote control, many Ukrainians see only one side of the story.
For example, when we are talking about the case of Mrs. Tymoshenko, Renat Kuzmin, who is the first Vice Deputy Prosecutor General, during the last 4 months, he was 4 times invited on the biggest TV show, talking to the 2 or 3 million audience each time, for 2 hours each time, with no presence of any other position. As for me, as for defense lawyer, I had no possibility to participate in such shows.
When I got to the heart of the matter, they understood that their criminal behavior was being exposed. The president's staff gave the order to stop the broadcast on the 5th channel and the other TV stations that are controlled by the regime. But that did not work with NTV and TVI. They picked it up. And thanks to those TV stations that are under huge pressure from the regime, society still found out about this. The people we've spoken to say Ukraine is one step away from dictatorship. The American human rights organization Freedom House calls Ukraine a partly free country. The constitutional state is falling apart, and freedoms are under pressure. Football fans traveling to Kharkov will probably not notice much. But there's one thing they'll have to watch out for: the Ukrainian police. That bare tree is the one they tied me to, where it all happened. It started at 10 a.m. and went on until 5 or 6 p.m. This is Yakov Strogan. He lives in Kharkov. In the summer of 2010, he had a quarrel with a neighbor. It came to blows. The police take Strogan to the station and accuse him of attempted murder. When he keeps denying, 4 officers take him to a forest just outside Kharkov. First, they tied my hands with a big piece of tape. They also put handcuffs on. They tied me to a tree and beat my head against it. They broke my nose and lips. They hung me from a tree by my feet, and they just kept beating me the whole day. I passed out like 8 or 9 times. They revived me with water, and that just continued. Finally, when I'd regained consciousness, they gave me electrical shocks. They took all my clothes off. I sat on the ground. One of them stood on one leg, another on the other leg. My hands were tied behind my back. One wire went to my nipple, and another one to my scrotum, and then, bang. Yakov Strogan's story is not unique. According to Amnesty International, the Ukrainian police torture suspects regularly.
We know at least about, 20 other cases, different cases in different parts of Ukraine, and we are receiving information about new cases quite often. But not always people, we don't know about all cases, as I said, because sometimes people do not believe in injustice and they don't want to submit a complaint. Why do they beat people? Why do they torture people? First of all, to make them confess sometimes, or to demand money from suspected people suspected in crimes.
But why is it so important for these policemen that they even beat up people in order for them to confess?
Because they are still keeping this old criteria of evaluation of performance of police. We are keeping it from Soviet times, so it's
they have to solve a certain number of cases.
Yes, exactly.
Yakov Strogan says he was tortured in the forest outside Kharkov. He maintains he did not try to kill his neighbor. The policeman took him back to the police station. His wife called in a lawyer. Did you have a medical examination? What was the result? They found signs of torture, burns on the chest and genitals, where the electrical charge was applied, bruises everywhere, a broken nose, smashed lips. It was all documented. Strogan filed a complaint against the police, but is then arrested again, and he says he was maltreated again. When he was medically examined after his second beating, the local TV is present. Now, 2 years later, The public prosecutor still hasn't started to investigate what's happened in the forest. According to my lawyer, there is plenty of evidence in this case to start a trial. But they hide everything because they protect their own people.
Prosecutors are not impartial enough because they do cooperate a lot with police when they investigate all other crimes. They don't want to investigate complaints on police.
Yakov Strogan himself must now appear in court for the fight with his neighbour. The charge: attempted murder. In Ukraine, not many people are against hosting Euro 2012. Quite the opposite. They see it as an opportunity to draw attention from the West to the problems in a country that cannot shake off its nickname, the Wild East.
It's an excellent chance to attract attention not only to the fact that Ukraine is a really beautiful country with beautiful cities, but also that this country with a lot of human rights problems.